While Virginia's gun and magazine ban faces state and federal challenges, a lot of gun owners looking for clarity on where the cases stand. Joining us to talk about the case in Virginia, the reaction from the Second Amendment community to court action, and what kinds of things we can expect from other cases from other states going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Let's talk with Philip Van Cleave. He's the president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. Philip, thanks for taking time with us here on the States. A lot to tackle. Of course, we've got all the action that the U.S. Supreme Court had this year. They're accepting more cases. We've got the case, at least on a federal level, in Virginia, still at the bottom. What is the latest status on Virginia's gun ban?
All right. Well, we have four lawsuits that were filed against the quote unquote assault firearm ban and magazine restrictions on the size of magazines, and also the carry of assault firearms in public. So those there are four different lawsuits. Two of them have gotten injunctions. Ours, which was filed in Lancaster County, has an injunction statewide on the state police enforcing it. And then Washington County, a judge there issued a statewide that wasn't just for state police not enforcing that law, but any law enforcement or any prosecutor. Nobody can enforce that law right now. So the state's been losing at every turn. Jay Jones has been trying to defend us, our attorney general, the same one that had fantasized in some texts about killing his opponent, his political opponent, with a gun. So he got elected. But on the other hand, he's very incompetent. So that's useful.
Well, Philip, what does this mean, though, for gun owners in particular, those who are able to sell these types of firearms?
Well, right now we got a full injunction. So right now, gun stores, some are choosing not to, but very few. Most gun stores are back to selling ARs. They're back to selling magazines that hold more than 15 rounds. So right now, life has kind of returned to normal. So basically, the gun control scheme that they put in place had an injunction from the day it went in, but the injunction got stronger on the 21st of July, because the first one, again, only enjoined the state police, and the one that came in on the 21st does all police, all prosecutors. Nobody can touch this for now. Could be overturned by a higher court, could put a stay on it, and then we're back to having an assault weapon ban. But for now, all they've managed to do, the gun controllers in the General Assembly and our governor and attorney general, all they've managed to do is sell a load of quote unquote assault firearms and higher capacity magazines into Virginia. I mean, sales were astronomical. And at the end of the day, they're going to lose this. They're going to lose this. We think they'll lose it when it gets to the Virginia Supreme Court. You've got the lawsuit coming in from the Department of Justice.
That's in federal court, right? You got the state court action, but you've also got that federal court action.
Yes, and that in turn gets carried up. Well, the Supreme Court's taken two assault firearm cases it'll be dealing with this next term coming up. So by this time next year, it's our belief that these bans will be toast. There'll be a little footnote in history. So we hope.
Well, with that, though, Philip, if you could, just as far as the status is concerned right now, right? I mean, because we're still 11 months away from whenever the U.S. Supreme Court could determine what happens with the Cook County, Illinois case and the Connecticut case. Who knows? Maybe the other Illinois ban challenge will actually get up to the Supreme Court as well, and we could see consolidations happen. But for Virginians right now, what's the timeline on when the appeal in the state court could possibly put that stay, or essentially, hold that district court's decision on the injunction? When should people expect that action?
Well, we don't know. I mean, initially, the Attorney General asked the Supreme Court to take this up, and the Virginia Supreme Court saying, "Oh boy, we've got this dangerous situation. These people are able to get these assault firearms." Then a couple weeks later, he drops the case. He says, "Nope, we're not going to appeal this." So he dropped his appeals at that point. which means it wasn't as dangerous, obviously, as he said it was. Then he has applied to say, well, we don't have standing, that assault firearms are not covered by the Constitution. So he's really floundering around out there now. Quite frankly, we're not too worried about him succeeding in any of this stuff. It could happen, but I'm not losing any sleep over it. So I think for Virginians right now, we keep on keeping on. However, if you do want to buy higher capacity magazines or standard capacity that are more than 15 rounds for your gun, might not hurt to go ahead and just get that if you didn't buy them earlier, or if you want a quote unquote assault firearm, go ahead and buy it now. That way, if the injunction somehow gets overturned and we're waiting for the U.S. Supreme Court or the Virginia Supreme Court to make a final ruling, you're not out in the cold. But really, things are looking up for us, I believe.
And Philip, some other elements of all of this, and I almost see these parallels between the years of coverage of Illinois' ban when it first started, and all of the pushback from places outside of Chicago, for example. State's attorneys in every county across the state, practically every county, a large portion of them were saying they weren't going to enforce this, and even sheriffs across the state were saying we're not going to enforce this. Did you guys have the same type of spirit there to have these local officials say we're not going to do what Virginia delegate wants to do?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, we have a list of Commonwealth attorneys, our prosecutors, if you will, that said not going to prosecute this. They said that before the law even kicked in July. They just said, nope, we're not going to do it. We have a bunch of sheriffs, same things. We have a list of those. And then a lot of localities are Second Amendment sanctuaries. So it's unlikely that any of them would have enforced any of this either. So yeah, there's momentum there. I think what's happened is when they picked on Virginia, that was a mistake, partly because even though we're technically purple and not deep blue, we're mostly red when you look at us from space and look on how people voted. It's mostly red. And I think that really got people's attention. Also, it's Virginia is where the headquarters of the NRA is, Gun Owners of America, us, which we're one of the most active Second Amendment statewide organizations in the country. And it was just a bad choice. And then you've got a bunch of other national gun organizations stepping in too and suing. So this was unlike any other situation where so many lawsuits all fell at one time. And I think, plus a few Supreme Court justices live in Virginia, but I think they picked the wrong state in the wrong time. And the U.S. Supreme Court, I think, has gotten impatient with all of this. They prefer a split, but where, one state would say, oh, that you can have these, and the other state says, no, you can't. They prefer that. The problem is none of the red states were doing this, so they couldn't get anything from them. All they had was blue states all agreeing that this was all perfectly constitutional. I think they got fed up with that and said, we've got to settle this, split or no split. Let's take the cases. Let's get this over with. And it may have been Virginia getting hit that they said, okay, this is going too far. We got to do something. And then we get a split. Then we get the Third Circuit, who actually does go the other way and strikes down New Jersey's ban. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm really optimistic on this.
We'll be watching that for sure, but obviously there's another side to this, Philip. You've got, like you said, even though Virginia's a purple state, the political reality is the Democrats have control of the governor's office and of the attorney general's office. Here is Virginia Delegate Dan Helmer in January of last year talking a little bit about why he thinks that this ban on semi-automatic firearms is necessary.
As a soldier, I trained to use an M4 and an M16. I carried them in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. I trusted those weapons because they were designed and created for their lethality. They allowed you to, in most cases, place sustained aimed semi-automatic fire on an enemy. Assault weapons sold in Virginia today are manufactured to mimic the functionality of those same weapons, providing for sustained aimed semi-automatic fire, but doing so in the context of our communities and our schools in the most lethal mass shootings in America, including here in Virginia.
Now, Philip, that's just some of the arguments we hear.
Yeah,
We
I know.
hear even like out of the Seventh Circuit, U.S. Court of Appeals, the majority opinion there said, well, we have unprecedented societal concerns of mass shootings and such. Where are they wrong in their arguments that there needs to be bans?
I might say, where is he right? That might be the real question here. His M4 was a machine gun, but let's just say that he put it in semi-automatic mode. I kind of doubt that, but maybe he did. All right, so we'll grant him something there. The Second Amendment protects exactly the kind of firearms that he's complaining about. It protects the right to keep and bear arms that would be useful, if you will, a weapon of war. Because the founding fathers, they created the Second Amendment. It was about hunting. It wasn't about target shooting, gun collecting. It was about, in an emergency, being able to take the country back from a government that had turned against its people, or the people helping the government in case of an emergency, like let's say Katrina, where they had no police to service neighborhoods. Citizens could protect their own neighborhoods, and also self-defense against criminals. So he's completely wrong in this. Also, he's referring to Virginia, the massacre here. That was done with handguns. It had nothing to do with ARs. And he's from New Jersey, so I guess he didn't know that, but it's had nothing to do. Our biggest massacre, which was at Virginia Tech, was all done with a handgun. So I don't know. I don't think he just really understands what he's doing with this stuff. He likes to throw around his service in the Army. Well, that's nice. Appreciate that. But once he's out of the military, now he's trying to destroy the Constitution. So I don't know if he wants to protect it, destroy it. I don't know if he's made up his mind.
Well, Philip, we're going to have to touch base with you as this case continues to progress in Virginia, but also as we watch what happens with the U.S. Supreme Court and all of the other cases tackling the issue of, can states ban commonly owned firearms? Philip Van Cleave, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, appreciate your time here with the states.